All right, good afternoon, good evening, my fellow hot rodders. I just wanted to make a quick video on how I installed this brake vacuum, a vacuum pump booster on my Plymouth. I've got a 383 engine here that I built, and it's got a kind of a oversized, nearly 500 lift Lenati cam with some deaeration, so it doesn't build much vacuum. And I know some people would just say, you should have stayed with the manual brakes, which I probably should have, but I didn't. And I installed the factory power brake system on it, and I installed a booster can, and then a friend of mine gave me this vacuum pump, which is pretty universal, that you can buy on any of the online speed shops or retailers online. And because I think this is pretty generic pump, and believe it or not, it happened to just fit perfectly in this compartment inside my fender well here. You can see where I kind of bolted it down. You can see the mounting bolts, and then so I mounted it. And you might want it to mount it when you get it out of the box. You can see the mounting bolts down there. And I had to extend mine because there was a bolt coming up through for the where the inner fender well attached to the I think it was to the core support. I think something down there. And so it's best to before you start drilling holes, just get you a piece of cardboard and make a template of the bracket holes, and that way you'll know. Use your template where before you're going to mount it, before you drill your holes. That way your holes aren't going to hit any existing bolts like mine did. And so this was a used setup that I got from a friend, like I said. And so when I hooked it all up, and I'll show you on this Plymouth I actually have a boost gauge, a vacuum boost gauge installed. I did that so I'd know when I had brakes, and to make sure, as long as I had vacuum, I had power brakes, because when you run out of power brakes on a drum vehicle, it's not fun. So I had some I hooked it all up, and as you can see the placement of it, and what I do is I ran the vacuum hose back through the fender well. I bought a 4-foot piece of hose, ran it back through here, and I came out. You can see it coming out there, and then I just I left the engine hooked up to it, which was you can see I took the boost can off, and I had to drill. You've got to, you can either use all of the vacuum, or you can leave your engine connected and have both, which I did. So I took you can see let's see, in there you can see that chrome fitting. That's the second valve that hooks onto that hose that runs down into the fender well, into my pump. So what I used I had to take, of course I had to take the vacuum can off, and I used that step drill right there. This is let's see, and this was just a set that I bought online, and they have a thickness on them. So it looks like I went to the second to the last step, which was like, I think 11/16. Yeah, 11/16. I don't know if you can see it on there, but it's 11/16. I didn't go all the way to the end, but I went to the second to the last step to drill into the booster. And then the grommet that you used to put it on the can before you push the valve in fit perfect. So that worked out well. And then I ran the hose. Oh, there's tons of mosquitoes back here already. And so what I wanted to show you was I had some problems. I hooked the unit up, and then it wasn't working correctly, so I had to break out the tester. And after a little research, I come to find out that, okay, there's the relay and then the switch, and so I kind of had to test both. So I tested the relay, and it's kind of a different relay from a normal relay because the power doesn't go through the relay in one side and out the other. The power just goes in. You hook your power, and then the power for the pump right here. As you can see, I've got my power coming in, and then the power jumps off and goes to the pump hot. Basically, this, and then you've got a ground, and then you've got the ground for the motor, and then you've got the ground going to the. We've got a ground going to the switch, and then the other terminal is the for the switch. And it's from what I understand, it's an elastomeric. It's probably it's only got one wire going to it, but you have to ground it, which is this wire here. Well, it's this wire here that I have grounded onto the, this wire that I have grounded here, which I have my test lead on, which is right here. Could have done a better place for this video because the mosquitoes are just absolutely eating me up, but I wanted to document this. So I showed you my vacuum gauge, which is sitting at 0, and so basically I wanted to test the switch. And so to test the switch, basically you've got to give the pump, you got to pull some vacuum, and I've got the since the switch has got power going to it through the relay. Basically, you can test with a test light tester to see if the switch is working. And so, as you can see right now, let me see if I have it on. And I had this toggle switch in, and I believe that's on. I had that toggle switch already installed when I was using that for fans, electric fans, but I went back to a manual fan. Okay, so so right now the vacuum pressure is at 0, and so basically let's see I'm gonna have to stop the video. Alright folks, back online here. I'm gonna show you how to test the switch, the pressure switch. Now, as you can see, I took my test light and I hooked the one lead to my power. I just hooked it there for a power source, and there's 0 vacuum in the system right now, as I showed you on my gauge a few seconds ago. And so basically, this is all the switch does is ground. It grounds out, which allows the pump to start running. It doesn't ground. It doesn't connect the power on this relay. Actually, the switch connects the ground circuit. And so since I've got my test lead right here on the power, which is right here, and I stick this in the brown wire, if I stick my test lead in the brown wire, which I wish I had a better setup here. You can see the light, my test light lights up when I connect it into the brown, because that switch is now grounded. And so, which right now, if the relay was working properly, the pump would be running, but it's not. So I had to order another relay. I haven't installed it yet, and hopefully that's the issue, because it looks like the pressure switch is doing its job. So what I'm going to do is, you can see it's lit. I'm going to crank up the pump, and I'm going to run it to 20 psi, which is it's set to cut off at 20, and then I'll show you, and then I'll test it again and show you that the test light doesn't light up once it's reached its setting for max setting, which would cut the pump off. And I'll return the video. I'll return to the video. Okay, back again. So I've got my test lead, and I'm using I just grabbed a piece of wire, which was actually a hot wire, but I'm using it as a ground wire, and just to run the pump. So disregard it being red, because I'm just using it for ground wire. And I just wanted to show you that what I did also, most people don't know there's an option for these pumps to buy an exhaust fitting, which is, you can buy this whole this entire fitting here. You can replace, you take that screw out, and they've actually got it where you can buy a muffler which is, you know, this whole piece, and I think it's like 20 bucks or something like that. And you can make it, because a lot of people complain these pumps are noisy, and it quiets it down. Now I decided to, just because I could, see if I could make my own and not spend that money. And I just took the original piece of, more mosquitoes, the original vacuum hose that came with it, and which was too short for my setup. And what I did was I just, I'm using it, I'm going to use it for the exhaust. And what I did was I just drilled a series of, you know, cross holes in it with a small drill. 3 holes went all the way through it. So like, you know, I don't know, 9 holes. And in the end, I just cut a small strip of Scotch-Brite, or any kind of, it doesn't have to be that brand, but any kind of this you know, this stuff that you know, roughed stuff up with. And because it's, you know, it's just, you can get air through it. You can blow through it. And basically I'm just using that as the muffler. So I just cut a small strip and, you know, you can see it in the end there, and then pushed it in. Now you want to cut it, you don't want to smash it in there, because you do want, you know, you want some of the, you know, you want the material to stay expanded so the air can go through it, just so the sound gets muffled coming out. And I'm going to show you the difference. I'm going to try and show you the difference in sound from when it's running with and without the muffler. So here I'm just going to ground the pump, which is what the switch is supposed to do. Well, I think I blew the fuse. I think I blew the fuse in that wire because it touched positive. So hold on, I'm going to have to get a different piece of wire. It seems I lost my, you know, this over here was my ground, and I cleaned everything off, sanded it off, and thought I had good ground, and it was working, and all of a sudden it stopped making connection. So I had to reposition the ground strap on there, and now I believe I have ground again. So I'm going to touch the ground to the ground and ground out the pump. The pump's already got power, and you'll hear the pump run with the muffler on it, which is right here, and I'll let you hear it. Okay, that's with the muffler. And what I'm trying to do is build up pressure to show you how to test the switch. Now I'm going to take the muffler off, and I'll let you listen to it. Take that off of there so I don't get ground out. Take that, push it out of the way. I'll pull off the muffler. Okay, muffler's off. You can see that got open exhaust. Now I'm going to run the pump again, and you tell me if that muffler helps. That's with. Don't want to touch ground. It does help a little bit. I won't say that it's a huge. I won't say it's a huge difference, but it sounds like it helps. And so, I guess what I proved is that I need to put this muffler back on. If I can get it on, holding this camera. Oh, this is impossible. It's so tight in here, it's hard to... There it goes. Alright, muffler on. And this has fallen down to where I can't get to it, so let me get this up here where I can ground it. I don't know, it helps a little bit. All right, let's see where the let's see where our vacuum is. Okay, we've got, and of course the sun's, there we go. We've got over 20 pounds of vacuum, or 20 HGs of vacuum pulled. And so now to test the switch, what you do is just take your ground, take your test lead, and you can see the brown wire there. If you put my test lead is now I got to put my test lead on hot. You got to have the test lead on hot to test the switch. So I've just pulled the this back a little bit so I could get my tester on the ground. And I'm gonna have to set the phone down for a minute while I get some power. Let's see. It's not taking power yet. Okay. All right. So I've got my test light, as you can see, hooked down there onto the power source. So now all I gotta do is ground my test light. If I hit ground, of course, my test light comes on. And so if I were to, now this is the lead coming out of the switch, and I'm gonna stick my test light into it. Which is hard to do holding the camera. But there, you saw I had over a little bit like 21 pounds of vacuum, and the test light's not lighting up, which means the switch is off. So it does work on the high threshold, and it did light up when it was at 0. So at some point it's got to kick it on. So the switch is working. I'm going to go ahead and replace the relay, and hopefully that's the problem. Okay folks, I'm back. I had to get on technical support with someone about the pump, because the brand new, after testing everything the way I showed you how to test the switch, which tested good, I put the new relay in that I bought, and the new relay was bad. So I called support, and they told me one thing that I was missing, when that was to test the relay with the other 3 wires intact, pull the switch wire off and run just touch a terminal, touch a wire from just ground it. Just ground this terminal, which is you can't see, the switch wire. Ground that to your ground, and the pump should kick on. That would mean that your relay is bad, which I did, and mine didn't work. So I went and got just a generic relay with a 30 that has a generic 4. You could use a 5, but I used a 4. I had one, and it's has the generic, I think it's 30, 87, 85, 86 terminals, and you just hook the 2 grounds, the one from the motor, the one from the chassis and the switch, to 30 and 87, and then you hook your hot to either one of the 85 or the 86, and then you put the brown wire to the 85 or 86. And all right, here's the last stages. I just wanted to show you the completed setup of this pump. And as soon as I cut my power switch on, pump immediately takes it on up to about 18 HGs of vac. And I'm going to go ahead and hit the brake pedal, and you can see what happens. It's going to kick on, and it should be more of a delay, but I'll take it. And the pump keeps it at about a constant, 16 or 17, which is fine. That should give you plenty for power brakes. And then as soon as you let off, it cuts off. And then I'm going to show you kind of sunny and hot still, of course, and I want to show you the finished product here. Let me get my light so we can get in here and get a better look at this. So after I've got the all my black cabling, you can see I tied up the I ended up going to just the relay that I bought. The exact replacement relay didn't work, so I had to figure out how to use just a standard 4-prong relay that everybody would have, or you can get from the auto parts store. It's got just the 30 and the 87, 85, 86, and you put the hot wire on either the 30 or the 87, and the switch wire goes on the either on the other 87 or 30, and then the two grounds to the chassis and the pump go on the 85 or the 86. Doesn't matter, and that worked great. That way you can just get that if that relay goes bad, you can get it anywhere. And so that's the final setup there, you can see, and it looks pretty good. You know, put the black protective tubing on it, and just zip tied that relay. I just zip tied it up and to the same bolt with the ground. I may put a panel on here and make it nicer in the future, but for now that should do it. That was a low cost alternative, so it worked out pretty good. So there you go. I hope this actually also, instead of running the two hots together on the female, which kind of made the wires kind of bulky and cumbersome, I put them together, the two hots, the one from the motor, the one from your positive hot. I put those together first with a large, with the large butt connector, and on one side, on one side, two wires in one side, and then the one wire hot out of the other side with the female connector on it that ran into the relay. So yeah, that's how I ended up finishing it out. I hope this helps your project, and you can get some useful tips maybe, and avoid some of the pitfalls before you get started. Thanks, and good luck. Thanks for watching.